Thank you so much for being here with me today. Like, I love
Thanks for having me.
speaking. Of course. I love when I get to speak to people who have really made an impact on my life. I think, growing up, um, I've always knew that I wanted to be a dad. Like from a very, very, very young age, it was something about just being able to raise a good human was something that always really sat well in my heart because I think the way that I grew up. Um, I'm like I said, I'm originally from California, but I'm from the inner city. I was born in LA, moved up and down South Central Los Angeles all my life. We never had one stable home, and I always knew that people around me were good humans. They just didn't have the tools and the
Yeah.
resources to act in a way that made them, man, dare I say, likable. You know what I mean? And it's something I was like, man, I want to be able to raise a kid and just do that because where I'm from, a lot of my friends and cousins didn't have their dads, and I had my dad, so I had I had a completed family until my parents got divorced. And when I listened to your work and I watch your work and I read your book, I'm like, this is everything that the world needs to hear because I think that raising good humans is really what I think we all want to do, but it's really, really difficult. It's really, really, really difficult. And I think that to raise a good human, and this is my belief, you need to become or learn how to operate like a good human, which is really, 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 really difficult. And I think your work does a phenomenal job of showcasing trying to become a good human and also raising good humans. So thank you for what you do. And it's helped me tremendously in my life and my parenting as a man. And as somebody who lived in a divorced home, like your work has done absolute wonders for me. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you so much for saying that. And that is such an honor. It's such an honor. And also, I don't have as many dads engaged.
Why do you think that is?
I think I think about this a lot because
Mhm.
um, it's so bizarre since the dads I know are so engaged and dads today are so much more present.
Mhm.
And so I'm not sure, but I think when I go to conferences that are not parenting related, but they're more general conferences, like I remember last last June I was at Aspen Ideas Festival and there were talks on every topic under the sun. And I noticed there was like one parenting focused thing that I was part of. But every conversation was addressed parenting or the experience being parented or early experiences, but
Mhm.
nobody, and those conversations were happening with dads who were talking about AI or they were talking about climate change or they were talking about so many different things. They didn't think they were talking about parenting. But I think that
Mhm.
when you say parenting, it turns into like preschool teacher or it feels light. And so
Mhm.
I think for a lot of fathers and men, it doesn't, it weaves its way into other conversations. But when it's targeted,
Mm.
it's like that's that's not that does seem to be more gendered.
Yeah, that's so funny. I'm thinking of this story that came to my head. So I was drafted to the NFL, and I was drafted by the Miami Dolphins, and
They're my
we.
favorite team.
Oh, really?
I have
That's
no idea
crazy.
what as dolphins when I was a
Oh,
kid.
okay.
Now
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not so fluent in it.
Okay. And this was during camp, and one of my teammates, we were talking about he had just had a kid, and his wife was watching their child at home, and the wife was asking him to come home and like help with the baby, and then he said in a very like stern way, "I'm not babysitting." And I'm just like, wait a minute. What are we talking about right now?
It's your baby.
like, I'm like, and that was my argument. I'm like, bro, that's your baby. And he's like, no, but that's babysitting. And we had this whole argument. I'm like 20 at the time. And I'm just like, this is just not right. Like, there's something wrong with how men view their nurturing care to a child and how much that actually really, really matters. And I started this show called More Than What Made Me because I believe that we are more than what made us. I feel like I am a walking testimony of lots of things, and I should have been a statistic, and I'm just not. And when I think about men not really diving into their really the importance that they have of learning how to be a good parent, and not like making it about gender, is just unfortunate because of how much of an impact they have from just their soul being aligned with who they're raising. And when I think about
Mm.
I think about like what we inherited from, how we were raised. And I always like to start from the root when I'm talking with anyone. So much of how we show up as parents is shaped by what we saw growing up, whether we know it or not. And I think that we're always trying to kind of not do the things that our parents did to us. And it feels like it's really, in my experience at least, that I didn't realize how much I was like my parents until I actually became one. And I swore up and down that I wouldn't do X, Y, and Z because I think what we're all trying to do is avoid pain that we got from our parents. I kind of feel like that's our default setting. And like, why is it so hard to notice what we've inherited from how we were raised until we're already in it?
I just think we aren't invested yet in figuring
Mm,
out how we became who we are and what our values are until we're faced with this massive task of raising another human being. And then I
mm,
think we're like, wait, wait. If we're lucky and if our kids are lucky, we take that reflective time to say, hold on a second, how did I get here? What
mm,
was my experience and what experience do I want to give my kids? And if you don't reflect on that, you lose out on these amazing opportunities to do what you said, which is to kind of break that cycle of I didn't like how that was. I didn't want that for me, but I couldn't raise myself. So now I can reparent myself so that I can
mm.
parent this child in a different kind of way without, throwing out the things that might have been good. And the other thing that's just scientific and I think so cool is that your brain, when it's in its most vulnerable state, is also, it has the most capacity to grow. So
Mm,
bad things can happen more easily, but it also means that really big good things can happen more easily. And the transition to becoming a parent is the third most vulnerable, meaning malleable time for your brain in our life course. So it makes sense that you're thinking, hold on, what do I want to change about myself? How do I make sure that I'm the person I need to be to raise this kid?
mhm,
So that's this time when your brain is like, I'll do that. I'm ready for that. I have the discipline for that. Now, as an athlete, like your brain knew how to be disciplined way
mhm,
earlier.
mhm,
And so, in a way, you had a lot of training for being uncomfortable, for pushing through failure, for doing the things that are required to bolster resilience. Because you couldn't, it's just like you wouldn't be able to do those things. You wouldn't be
mhm,
able to put yourself out there. You wouldn't be able to train when you don't feel like it. There's so much that you have to learn as an athlete that you don't have to learn otherwise. But I think for most people, that transition to becoming a parent is like, okay, I couldn't have that discipline before, but now my motivation is there and my brain is ripe for it.
mhm. That's such a good point because I think that's where like me and my wife probably clash the most, just because I have this very like disciplined approach to things. And then when we first got a kid, I'm like, we're doing this, and this because the routine got to be this. We got to wake up at this time. And that first baby came, I was like, yo, like none of this is going to stick. None of it's going to stick. And I know that that is a trait of mine because I've been an athlete since 9 years old and I played professionally. But for people who like don't understand that piece and it's something they have to essentially ingrain in themselves to get disciplined. I kind of feel like they run on autopilot from what they know, and they're trying to
Exactly,
fix and they're trying to figure out
'cause you're
what
just
to do.
surviving.
Yeah, exactly. So what does it look like when someone's parenting on autopilot and not really realizing it? Like, how can they become like, "Oh, I think I'm kinda just going with the flow and it's not working."
Well, I that autopilot is really easy to default to. So if
Mm,
you aren't asking yourself the question, you know, what was my experience being parented, being loved?
mhm,
What was my experience loving just in those early years? And how did that present, whether it was emotional or how did that present in boundaries and limits? That sort of some of the things you're talking about only happen in the context of love. Otherwise, they're scary.
mhm,
So, like, knowing what your schedule is, knowing that your child has to sleep, knowing all of those things, you can't really be aware of that if the way you experienced it was because you were afraid to get in trouble or you were afraid to break a rule. But if it was like in the context of love and support, it's a totally different thing. It's like, I've got I I've got you. Like, these are the things that you're gonna need in order to grow in a healthy way, and I love you, and that's why those rules exist. And I don't think we any of us can do that without stopping and saying, "What was my experience? What do I believe? And what do I go to automatically if I don't think about it?" And if what you go to automatically isn't your dream scenario, like when the milk is spilled, do you is your automatic reaction overwhelm and rage? Then that means like I definitely didn't want to do that. What's going on here?
Oh, that's such a good point.
And it's just like those little moments every time you catch yourself doing something where you're like, why did I just do it that way? You're
Mhm,
reflecting and you're becoming a better parent. I think the risk is that you do something that you experienced when you were a kid. You don't pause to say, "Oh, I don't like how I did that at all. That's not what
mhm,
I I don't I don't want to keep doing that." If you don't ask yourself that and you don't catch those moments, or maybe even more challenging would be if you're like, yeah, now I understand more
mhm,
why I was yelled at all the time
mhm,
or whatever it is. I
mhm,
think then you risk staying on autopilot because it's comfortable, because it's easier, and because it makes sense to you. It's your lived experience. Even if you disagree with it intellectually, it's in your body. Like your nervous system recognizes it. These are patterns that were set early. And the truth is that home is our natural place that we try to get back
mhm,
to, even if that place wasn't ideal. And so if you don't take the time to ask yourself, why is home to me this uncomfortable thing or unsafe thing? You're going to just repeat it because you're going to want to get back home with your kid.
mhm.
And for some people, home is beautiful. And I hope for our kids, home is safe and beautiful and they are loved. But not everybody experienced home in this beautiful way.
Yeah.
Or maybe sometimes they did and sometimes they didn't.
Mhm,
And if you could think about it in relationships, like in people, young people when they're dating, if you meet someone and you're like really excited about it, but they don't treat you very well, you can ask yourself if you're reflective and thinking, why do I keep wanting somebody who's rejecting me? Like what's so appealing about this person who keeps rejecting me?
mhm,
Well, that might have been your first experience of love.
mhm.
And so even if intellectually you know that that's not supposed to be how it feels, your body is like, oh, yeah, that feeling of getting rejected and going running after somebody is very familiar. There's something about it
Familiar.
that feels like
Mhm,
home. So you
mhm.
keep trying to relive it.
Thank you so much for explaining that so beautifully, because I think my experience coming from where I'm from and then moving to a place like Minneapolis, and, when I come around a predominantly Caucasian, state, my demeanor and how I talk and how I act is very different from what's going on. It's my lived experience and it's my culture. And then when I became a parent, I started to realize like, oh my God, now I understand why my auntie is this way, why my uncle was this way, why my cousin does this because his dad did that. I'm like, when you like, I never forget the first time my freshman year I went to Minnesota, went back for spring break, and I kind of saw the dynamics of my family. I'm like,
Oh,
oh my God, now I get it. I'm like, nobody has left. So now when my cousins act like their mom or whatever, it makes sense. This is home
yeah.
for them. This is familiar. So what now when, I have a conversation with somebody in Minnesota and it seems as like combative, it's like, I'm just like, what are you talking about? Like, that's just kind of how I speak. But then when I go home and I watch it, I'm like, oh my God. So
That's
now
so
I
funny.
understand.
My husband, so I'm remarried, and my husband says all the time, because he grew up in a really calmer household, I would say. And
Mhm.
like we come from a different cultural background, and oftentimes I'll be talking to my kids and we're just talking in my view. And I think of myself as pretty mellow relative
Mhm.
to how I was raised.
Mhm.
And I'm talking to my kids and he's like, he'll interrupt and he'll say, "Are you guys talking or arguing right now?" And I'm like, "What?" And my kids are like, "What? We're just talking." But
Mhm.
for him, he's like, that's loud. That's
Mhm.
very loud. And so I think it does really help to kind of step outside of your norm to
Mhm.
see how other people experience the world. Cause then you're like, oh, we are kind of like loud.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's not bad or good so much as it's being aware of it to decide, like, no, I like that. Okay, it's
Mhm.
loud but friendly and happy, so it's
Yeah.
cool. Versus, oh, we sound really aggressive and
Yeah.
nasty to each other. Maybe
Mhm.
we need to like notice that
Mhm.
and reevaluate.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like for me, it was accepting that this is my culture, this is who I am, and there's nuance in every thing that you say. And there's nuance in the way that you deliver something. You can say one thing 100 different ways.
Mhm.
And now that my kids are getting older, I can see, okay, they definitely got that from me. They definitely got that from Charlotte. You know what I mean? And like, I'm like, oh, maybe I did say it that way. And I got to like kind of tone it back a little. Like, Maddie, tone it back a little bit. Dad shouldn't have said it that way. And I think the important thing for me was also acceptance of like, I love who I am. There's a
Mhm.
lot that I need to unlearn. I believe that life is more about unlearning than learning. And then when you kind of go through that process, you can learn a lot and um, apply those skills to your life, which ultimately makes you a better parent. But what do you think is a first step in becoming more conscious and aware? Like if you are on autopilot, what's the first step you can take to be like, okay, something's off?
I I mean, this is gonna sound so simple. Breathing.
Mm,
When you tell yourself, before I do anything, unless there's imminent danger, like if your child is in danger, don't stop to take a breath.
mhm,
Go, you know?
mm,
When they're running across the street, that's not when you use your like calm, gentle self. You're like,
mhm,
I need to save your life. And if I have to
mhm,
scream, I scream. But when there's no threat, everybody's safe. Tell yourself, for this day or week, before I say anything in response to a behavior or in response to anything that's going on, I'm going to tell myself that I'm going to take a breath in through my nose and out through my mouth.
mhm,
And then you automatically create a pause to give your brain and your nervous system a message, which is everybody's safe. Because our primitive selves wouldn't have stopped if we were being chased in the jungle to take a breath unless we absolutely knew that there was nobody chasing us.
mhm,
So it's like a very nice message to yourself, I'm safe. To go to the very lame example of the spilled milk, the milk spills before you do anything, before you even wipe it up, unless it's about to ruin something very valuable to you. Take a breath, and your brain now knows everybody's safe. So you're probably not going to yell about it or be like, you know, do something that feels like you're going to regret it. Now, for some people, spilled milk does not set them off, so it wouldn't matter. But I think when you're at the beginning of this process of trying to figure out how to reflect, just breathing forces you to pay attention to those moments when you're walking in the door. like you're coming home from work,
Mhm.
before, like tell yourself, I touch the doorknob and I don't just walk in because I'm rushed and want to see everybody. I pause and breathe. And just doing that, it just changes your nervous system. I think of it like it's the password or the passcode that you punch in for an alarm.
Mhm.
Even when you pick up your phone, when there's a password instead of Face ID, you don't do things as thought in such a thoughtless way because you've already told your nervous system you're safe. You don't have to do anything drastic. So you don't have to write that text.
Mhm.
You don't have to move as quickly. Nobody is chasing you. And
Mhm.
it just allows for reflection and
Mhm.
thought. So
Mhm.
I really like the work is hard. Being a parent is hard. Being a thoughtful, mindful parent is hard. But being conscious is hard because we are people and it's just
Mhm.
hard to be a person. But technically, it's not hard. It's taking a breath and telling yourself, my nervous system can go back to feeling at ease. And
Mhm.
whenever you know that you're not in danger, you act better.
Yeah, 100%. Mhm.
When you were talking about when you were a kid and like certain people that you were around and you were just like, I know that they're good people. They just didn't have the tools. I think a lot of them didn't have the safety to say,
Mhm.
I can think before I act. They just had to act.
Mhm.
And nobody's best comes out when you are all act, you know, not no thought. It just doesn't work because, I mean, when you feel unsafe emotionally or physically, you're at your absolute worst. You have to
Mhm.
be.
What you're saying is so good. Like, I'm just thinking about understanding the importance of practice as a parent. And this is easy for me because, I was an athlete. And I think
Because
like
you
we talked about
practiced.
earlier. Yeah, yeah. And I practice a lot. And, being an athlete, you have to practice and you got to watch the film. You got to grade yourself. You got to listen to the coaches kind of wreck you. You got to listen to your teammates make fun of you if you made up on something, if you messed up on something. And then you got to go out there and you got to practice and you got to do it better every single time. And this is when I knew I loved your work more than anything because what you're talking about, I was doing really early in my fatherhood journey. I remember I actually made videos about this where before I walked in my house, I had like an emotion wheel. And I would like
Ah,
I would sit in my car. Yeah, I would sit in my car and I would look at my emotion wheel. I'm like, okay, how am I feeling? And then the emotion wheel, it'd be one word like anxious. And then the next part of the wheel will be like, well, these are the three other things. And then the top is like, well, this is what you're actually feeling. And I'm like, okay, all right, this is how I'm feeling. This is why. It has nothing to do with those children and my wife in there. And what that did for me walking into my home was unreal. So I always have like these little, like, essentially drills throughout my day
yeah.
to make sure that, like, when I go in there, whatever I got going on is not because of them. But also, if there's something is going on with me that is because of them, I can address just that thing.
Yeah.
And the only way I was able to do that was by practice and by having drills throughout my day to make sure that I'm not giving harm to people that's not theirs.
Right.
I mean, it's not
It's
theirs.
your stuff.
Yeah, it's
Right.
100% mine because of work or because I had a bad day or bad sleep or bad nutrition or thinking about something that happened in the past. Or there's so many things that can just knock you off. And it's easy to hurt the people closest to you. And I knew that early because, like, I knew my mom and dad loved me as a kid. I knew they did. And when they would, like, spank me or make me stand in a corner or I couldn't play in the football game or they would get into it and then my dad would take it out on us. I'm just like, I think subconsciously I knew, like, all right, well, I am crying and I am upset and I did get
Mhm.
spanked, but they love me. I know they do. Like, I know they love me. So going back to practice, it's like, I just would love to know how people can implement practice throughout their day. Because again, with football, it's filmed. We have times to go in and look at the film, and then we have a time to practice. Parenting ain't like that. It's like there's games throughout the day. Like, there's no real practice. If like it's game time, the spilled milk is game time. When
Yeah.
their kids are like waking up at 3 in the morning, that's game time. I don't have time to kind of warm up and do the drill, right? So,
Yeah.
how do you think people can implement? Well, first of all, what is practicing as a parent really mean?
Well, interesting. That just makes me think of so many different things. First of all, when you do research on parents, one of the first things I do in graduate school is code these videotaped interactions of parents practicing, basically, because it was a study. And the parents would be given certain activities to do with their children, depending on their age, because some of them were babies, some of them were toddlers, some were school age. And they knew they were being recorded, so they're at their best, you know?
Mhm.
And then eventually, in this particular program, part of the training was to then rewatch the interactions with the parents so that you could really talk through like the parenting. Now, that is very unusual. Like you're not gonna that was like in a lab and not something typical. And it was really to learn more about how to help parents. But what I think is interesting about what you said, I mean, a lot of it is interesting. Practice, is how you improve. And making mistakes and then getting up again is how you improve. And I think if parents can recognize, to your point, every one of those little interactions doesn't have to be perfect. It has to be that you're paying attention and you're like, how did I respond to that or react? What would I want to do normally? And so you're in game time a lot. But the practice is the looking back and then making repairs when you blow it, and knowing that each time that's like practice to grow. You don't get the other side of practice is, I mean, that example of in the car is a great example to me. What you're doing is you're having that's like a mindful moment of practice. Nobody is risking anything. You're practicing, looking at how you're feeling and making sure that you address what's going on so you don't lend the wrong nervous system to your kids. Like if you're angry when you're about to walk into the house, they could be having the greatest day, but it's going to change even if you don't say anything, even if you're like, well, I'm not going to tell them I'm angry, they feel it because they're borrowing that nervous system from you. So the practice for me, when I listen to that, is that you're practicing paying attention to what your nervous system is telling you and then going in trying to be regulated. Like if you didn't take a pause to think about how you're feeling, you might walk into the house dysregulated and just like, then it's just like you're, a bull in a china shop and your mood is going to impact everything that you're touching. And I also think practice can be like your moment in the car, but you just say to yourself, okay, I shower and brush my teeth every day. So those are 2 times in my busy, busy day where I can just go through the motions of showering and brushing my teeth, or I can practice thinking about what is my nervous system telling me right now? How am I feeling? What happens when I take a breath in and a breath out? And in doing so, what might seem pointless is actually exercising the muscle of being able to go from one state of emotion to another. And just getting good at that, growing that muscle and like fluency means that in the moment when the milk is spilled, you've already practiced getting really annoyed and then coming back to zero. So to me, anytime you can practice recognizing your state, like what your emotional state is, and then making the decision to tell your body, I'm safe, everybody's cool, I'm just annoyed right now, means that the next time you have an interaction with your child, because there's nothing more annoying and infuriating than like, and I'm talking about the easier feelings, like annoyed.
Yeah.
Because that's going to happen 400 times a day. You'll get so much practice being annoyed. You're not going to get as much practice being enraged or devastated, hopefully. But annoyed frustrated, that's like all day, every
Shame.
day as a parent. Um, and so practicing going from one state to a state of regulation. And to me, regulated state, like a regulated nervous system, is just one that says we're safe. We don't need to be ready to pounce, and we can make good decisions right now.
I want to share something with you. I want to hear your thoughts on this because I'm thinking about what we said about men in the beginning. Then I'm thinking about trying to take a breath as a man who's like, just, I got to do all the things. And when it comes with football, it was like, well, not even just football, life. Let's just talk about life. I believe that, if 10 people are saying the same thing about you and you're still in disbelief, then I think there needs to be some looking in the
Reflection.
mirror. Yeah, there needs to be some looking in the mirror. And I think for me, at least, that's where a lot of the change has come because, again, if I'm playing in a stadium full of people, there's people on Twitter, there's people on Instagram, there's people everywhere who get to say, Cedric doesn't do well at this thing. And I thought that I did. And then that makes me pause, and I can either be driven by ego and say, I don't care what they say, I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing, or I'm gonna look at the film and see, oh, I actually do need to change this. And I think that allowed me to pause and not get so defensive
Yeah.
on what 10 people are saying about me because I don't want to believe that it's true. What do you think about that?
I mean, first of all, again, that's a really good practice. And it's really good to have the opportunity to hear. I mean, it doesn't feel good, but it grew your muscle to be able to get feedback and respond to it instead of just be reactive and defensive. So I think we all could say to ourselves, we have to balance being true to ourselves and being able to say, if more than one person has said the same thing to me, I got to look at that. And again, you can't do that without stopping and saying to yourself, I'm safe getting criticized. This is feedback. What am I going to do with it? But if you're on the defensive because you're like, this is not safe, I can't even pause to reflect, then you're not going to get the practice. And again, this is all about practice over and over. You can't grow these muscles without practice. And if you don't like that feeling of paying attention to how you're feeling, then you're not going to practice. You're going to just kind of shut off because you're like, I don't like that. I don't like it and I don't want to experience it. And it's not conscious. We're wired to be, to make ourselves have an easier time and be like unaware. We're not supposed to reflect because that's a little bit harder. So again, because you've had the experience of having like, you maybe wouldn't choose to have people saying like, I don't know what anybody would be saying, but the 10 people saying Cedric has yet again, I don't know enough about football to say something critical.
I'm slow. Let's just go with that.
Yeah, he's so slow. And when he's in this one position or something, then eventually you're just like, all right, let me look at the video. Is that true? Okay, I'm seeing some truth. And the more you experience that and realize like you're intact, you still like yourself, you still function, then you are like, okay, this isn't so bad. I can do this again. And I think, so I wrote the 5 principles of parenting, and the second principle is reflection. And I don't think people pay enough attention to it, although in this conversation you do. I think we really don't understand how hard reflection is. And I think once you've done it enough, you start to realize it's so powerful and it's not dangerous. And I don't know that it's that easy in the beginning to be able to reflect and to hear what people are saying if they're giving you feedback and to think that's okay. I survived that. Like I still have my whole self intact. Once you've done that over and over, I do think it doesn't impact your ego as much. You're like,
Not
this
at
is just
all.
part of the process, right? I'm sure when you were
100%.
younger, it could have been devastating. but you had to make a decision as an athlete. Am I going to be devastated by this, or am I going to move forward?
Mhm.
Because I'm sure there are a lot of talented athletes who couldn't make it because they couldn't do that. Like that was too
Mhm.
hard for them. And so their ego overrode all of that. And so it
Mhm.
got in the way of their performance.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think reflection is it's necessary. Like it's needed. It's the only way you really can see what you're capable of. That's the only way you can see how you what you're capable of. Because again, if you're running on autopilot, there's no way to eventually get to the parent and the person that you want to be. That's the only way you can get there is by reflecting and
Yes.
asking yourself, "Am I who I want to be?" And I think the scarier question is, am I being who I say that I am? That's the one
Yeah.
that really scares me. 'Cause I'm like, if I'm not, and I believe this ideal self and I'm not acting like it, I'm lying to myself. In every role that I'm in, husband, father, friend, it's not real because I'm not acting how I would like to because I'm not reflecting. And I'm thinking about, reflecting allows you to acquire new skills. Like you learn new skills, which ultimately helps you be a better parent. So how how does a parent learn or get comfortable with like knowing that there's skills that need to be learned?
Well, I mean, the thing that I feel so frustrated about is nobody, even if you're an amazing football player, like you have the natural underlying physical capacity, you don't expect that you're going to be at the level of a
Mhm.
professional football player when you're first starting,
Mhm.
even if people are saying you're really good. In life, there is nothing that comes beautifully, perfectly, easily, and doesn't, like improves. But we have this expectation that we have a newborn baby and we're going to just be at our best parenting
Yeah.
ever. Like we're new at it. We are born as parents as soon as we have a baby. So we're like growing up together with them. And if we could give ourselves the same grace we give a baby learning to walk, we don't expect them to walk and run right away. We're like so
Mhm.
excited when they just stand up and like lift their hands off of whatever they were holding and
Mhm.
balance for a second. We're like, oh my God.
Mhm.
We need to do that with ourselves and our parenting skills. Like every time we see that we were like, oh, I loved how I just responded to that situation.
Mhm.
I'm watching myself do better. I'm I'm becoming the parent that I want to be and that my child needs. But it's a becoming. It's not like you woke up, had a baby, and you're supposed to be so great at this. It's like, I also think we have a narrative in the culture, and it's harder for, I think, men. A lot of times it's harder for fathers than mothers, even, which is go with your gut. And
Mhm.
this is your instinct will know what to do. And I think, yes, you can keep a child alive with your instinct because we all like that is this primal instinct. But go with your gut. What if your gut experienced over and over this learning about bad parenting, about
Mhm.
how not to do it? Now, if you go with your gut, you're actually not going to be aligned with your values. So you
Mhm.
can't. So you have to pay attention again. But I think that honest, I think grace that we give ourselves of, oh, wait, I'm new at this. This is new and I'm exercising. I'm getting better and better is so much more valuable for parents as a way of thinking than to just berate yourself for not being perfect at something that you've never practiced.
Mhm. 100%. And I think the big thing too that I've learned is like you're gonna mess up, and
Yeah,
you have time to heal with your kids. Like
that's
if you
right.
mess up, if you mess up 5 times on the same thing, you have time. You have time to repair. You 100% have time to
Yes.
repair. I told my mom the other day, I was like, look, I'm doing the best that I can. I feel like I'm doing great, but I am ready for when my kids are 16, 15, 17, whatever. And they say, Dad, when you did this when I was 8, that really bothered me. I am ready for that conversation right now because I don't know. I don't know what I did because I'm not like I don't have somebody following me around with a camera all day. I'm
Right.
going I'm making decisions based on the information that I have at the time, and then I'm reflecting and changing what I don't like, and I'm taking in as much as I can, and I'm trying to be a good human at the same time. It is
A lot.
a lot. It's a lot. And I think and I'll be curious to hear what you think about this, is what saved me a lot to become better as a parent is curiosity. Just
Mm.
playing with curiosity. Like, I wonder if I did do this, how it would go. And most of the time, when you're curious, you're not thinking about doing bad things. At least for me, I'm always thinking about, I
Yeah.
wonder if I like just let go and let the milk spill and like let them play with it and see how the kids react. And they're splashing in it, and it's funny. It's funny. And like it's a good time. And then the same 2 minutes that it took me to clean up, we
Right.
got 3 minutes of happy time, and then I cleaned it up. So curiosity for me plays a huge role in being able to acquire new skills and to not spaz out and to become, I think, the teddy bear that I hope to be for my three girls. You know what I mean? So do you think curiosity plays a big role in becoming a
Huge.
good parent?
Huge, because curiosity allows you to, when you're trying to figure out what's going on for yourself, like the practice is, I'm going to be curious with myself. And then when your kids, especially as they get older, especially because you have three girls, it's like, this is not your lived experience.
Mhm.
Being a girl is not your lived experience. And so I think coming at everything with curiosity is open. It's a wonder. It's not, I know and I have an opinion about it already. And so it makes the other person in the relationship feel also safe,
Mhm.
because you're not coming in with all of the, like, curiosity, I think, is how to have the best conversations. It's how to
Mhm.
have the best relationships, because the person on the receiving end is like, really, what, it feels so good. It feels so good to know that you haven't made a decision yet about
Mhm.
my behavior, my actions, whatever. Now, separately, you as a father know what your values are. You've reflected on who is the guy I want to be? Who's the father I want to be? I want to be a teddy bear. That's one. And so now every time you make decisions about yourself as a father, and every time you're curious with your girls or your own self, you ask, is this aligned with my values? And when it is, you feel so good. You're integrated. Like,
Mhm.
that's so good. And when it's not, it feels terrible. But I think it's, if you can get curious, like, well, why isn't it? What got in the way? Then, I mean, it it opens up the possibility, and I think is quite hopeful, that you'll work more in alignment with your values going forward, because you don't like how it feels not to.
Mhm.
Like, a lot of times people talk about, you know, feeling guilty, for example, is not a good feeling. Nobody likes to feel guilty. And we don't want to shame our kids ever. That shuts people down, and it doesn't change behavior, and it just feels like you distance yourself. But feeling a little bit of like, oh, that didn't align with my values. I did something at school today. I'm afraid to tell you because it didn't align with your values. I know that. And I think I feel guilty now. I, I think the curious father is able to say, well, you know what? You're safe to tell me, even
Mhm.
if and and I will tell you if it doesn't align with our values.
Mhm.
That's why you feel guilty. That's a good thing.
Mhm.
That means your stomach is telling you, I don't want to do that again.
Mhm.
So I actually think curiosity allows for paying attention to what, who you want to be,
Mhm.
who you're allowing your kids to unfold as, because
Mhm.
they now can come to you knowing you're going to be curious instead of
Mhm.
furious. I just,
Mhm.
that was so cheesy.
No,
But
but I think that's good though, because I think for me, there was a lot of repair that needed to happen for me with that, especially with, I've been around men all my life and like these like, men who like are very like headstrong, and like that's kind of like how I operated. And when I had my girls, like I thank God for my girls. They changed my life because I've had to like, yo, step back, like step back a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had like these expectations of them to like be disciplined and strong. And like, why did you do that? We don't do that way and whatever. And I noticed early, man, they're afraid to come to me about stuff because I think I'm a little bit too tough. So I was like, got curious. I'm like, okay, what if I just like ask them questions about like why they
Yes.
did that? And man, my kids, I mean, you talking about being annoyed 400 times a day. It's like I feel like I opened up Pandora's box for being curious, and I'm just like they ask me questions about everything because they know that they can come to me about, oh, I made a mistake. Like my 3-year-old, or potty training her, and she peed on herself yesterday on the couch, and she walked up to me. She says, "Dad, my underwear is wet," and I can feel in my brain. I can feel like the rage.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's like it's so silent now. I'm like, it's okay, honey. Like next time, just let daddy know you have to go to the potty. The potty. She goes, okay. But the thing, I watched her walk up to me, and I can tell that she was afraid because she know that what she did isn't like right. Like something's wrong because all the adults are telling me to go to the potty, and like it seems to be really intense. And now I'm gonna go tell my dad, and now I'm waiting to see how he responds. And I say, it's okay, honey. Let's go
Ugh.
upstairs. Let's change. Just let me know. And that, like that little opportunity is just another brick in our foundation that they can come
So
to me about anything.
that is such a gorgeous example. Now, she is getting wired to know that when she
Mm-hmm.
screws up, you are the person to go to.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that you're saying, like, let's never try this again. You're not like, oh, you peed in your underwear and we don't need to clean up and we don't need to try again. You're like, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
that. Thanks for letting me know. We'll go change and you'll try again later.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is what you can do next time. She now knows that when she's 15 and she does something
Mm-hmm.
that is unsafe and she comes to you, you're going to be the person that is going to help her do better next time, but also who she's going to share this with, which will
Mm-hmm.
make her much better off and safer than if she's so scared of you that she'd rather lie than come to you with her mistakes.
See, Doc, I'm telling you, this is exactly why I work so hard on myself because I'm living for those days when like it's low stakes right now.
Low
We're
stake
talking about
P,
we're
right?
talking about pee. We're talking about like asking for a treat. We're talking about like lying about winning the Uno game. It's
Exactly.
low stakes when they're teenagers. And I think
High
about this all
stake.
the time when like drugs come around,
Yeah.
sex comes around, making getting around certain groups of friends, picking what they want to do with their lives. Okay, we're at a high stakes decision making here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
So
don't
I
want them
want them.
afraid of you.
No, I want them to come to me because look, I'm your dad. I do have lived experience. I've been 15, 16 before. I've been 13, 12 before. I've never had, a period, or I've never had a boyfriend. And like, that's what the other partner's for. But I do have lived experience where you can trust me and let me help you. Let me help guide you to
Yes.
make a better decision. I'm never going to tell you what to do at a certain point in your life, obviously, and obviously there's nuance on what they're doing, but I'm a guide for you, honey. You can trust me, but it's not up to them to trust me. It's up to me right now that
To
they can
show
come to
them.
me later. Yes, 100%.
That's
And
exactly
it's
right.
funny. It's funny because I have an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 3-year-old, and every kid kind of shows you that you got better at this because my 8-year-old, there's a lot of repair where she has to come back and like we have to build the trust. The middle child is kind of like she can come to me about anything, and the baby, she's getting the best of me right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's getting the best of me, and good for her. But I still see the repair happening for me to build trust because again, I'm putting off my old self, old football discipline around men, said to father, husband of 3 daughters who are kids. It's low stakes. So let's take a breath. Let's look at the spilled milk and let's figure out the best way to respond, given that this is not that big of a deal. Everybody's safe.
Everybody's
Everything's
safe.
fine. Yeah. And that's like that everything is safe. I think I think people can look at safety as like, oh, we're not being attacked, but I think it means something way more than that. Because what are the odds that you're getting attacked most of the time, depending on where you live,
Right.
economic status and stuff. But you're you rarely have to use those kind of responses. Most of the time, it is the spilled milk and stuff. So I know, and we're wrapping up on time, or we can close with this. I wanted to talk about confidence and all kind of stuff, but we can talk about that another time. What would you say about the true meaning of safety as from parent to child, outside of like obviously protecting them from being harmed?
Yeah, I mean, I think safety, of course, protecting them from harm,
Hmm.
physical harm is, that's our primary job. And frankly, we're good at that.
Hmm.
Like that comes naturally. I think the other kind of safety, of emotional safety, basically it means you are not under attack for who you are or how you feel. That is game changing for people.
Hmm.
I mean, how many of us even say, like, when they're upset? I'm trying to think of a more guy example, but I'm having trouble. But thinking about like someone who's really upset and they're coming to you and they apologize. Like they're like, "I'm so sorry, I'm crying. I know that this isn't, as bad as being attacked or whatever." Those moments when you're like apologizing for just being a person and having a feeling, we don't want that. We want to be able to say, "I'm emotionally and physically safe." Like all of those things are part of my being in this household with this
Hmm.
parent. Like my father isn't telling me how to feel or it's not okay to feel this way. He's saying like, "I'm here for it." Doesn't mean you're going to be like, everything is, everything you do is amazing. You have to, for safety reasons, have rules. But
Hmm.
it's about not just your physical safety and emotional safety, but the physical and emotional safety of others around you. Because our responsibility for our kids isn't just that they live in a world where they're emotionally and physically safe, but they don't walk around not taking into account other people's emotional and
Hmm.
physical safety. Because I think if we think about that responsibility as people, we are of course going to be good people. You know, that
Hmm.
that's good humans, just
Hmm.
paying attention to the emotional and physical safety of ourselves and others. Once we've done that, we've kind of done it. And
Hmm.
that doesn't mean people are always going to feel good. It means that those feelings are not dangerous.
Hmm.
They come and go.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so good. I had a conversation with my brother-in-law like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, he asked me like, "What do you want to do? I mean, what do you want people to say about you when you're on your deathbed?" And I always ignore questions like
That's
this.
a deep conversation you
Yeah,
were
I
having.
know. We talked for like 2 hours. We talked from like 10 to almost like midnight, and that question came up, and the conversation prompted a good answer. And I never have answers for stuff like that. I'm very much like a go with the flow kind of guy. And I was like, I think it's to feel good in my body. Like that means to take care of myself and mentally feel good. But also, I think is that when I come around, people feel good when they're around me. And
Yeah.
that's exactly what you're speaking to. And when I realized it, I'm like, oh my God, I just want people to feel good around me because I feel good. And that is like I think that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's why raising good humans is so important. And that's why I believe the core of it, just in my lived experience, is reflection. And reflection is really, really difficult. It is so hard. I hated doing it in football. I hate it more with having kids because you don't want to hurt your babies. But the fact of the matter is, you are. You are. But you let
Repair.
us know exactly. You can repair it, and we have time. And I think, yeah, we have time. And most of the time is on our side if we allow it to, by not bogging our brains with we suck, we're not good, and
Yeah.
our kids are never going to get over it.
If we could remember that if we don't believe in repair and we just berate ourselves, we suck, our
Mhm.
kids are ruined because of how I responded in this particular thing. I think we're also putting a voice in their head we don't want for them
Mm.
because they're going to mirror back when they grow up. That's lack of self-compassion. So I think repair is not just important in real time for us to repair these relationships, to strengthen those muscles, but it's also so that they aren't burdened with the idea that every mistake they make is fatal and that they should be cruel to themselves inside their own heads. And so we as a service to them have to fight against the urge to criticize ourselves like that because they'll hear it and it becomes ingrained in them. And we don't want them to have to break that cycle. We want them to grow into people who are like, okay, how can I make this repair? It's not end of days. And ultimately, when you really believe in that, you have stronger relationships because you're not afraid they're just gone the second something goes wrong. It feels so safe. That's another version of safety, right? Knowing that this relationship isn't breakable. It's so strong, it can withstand the bumps in the road.
Mhm. Hey, Dr. Aliza, thank you so much for speaking with me. Like, it's like a dream come true for me to speak to you. Like, I really meant what I said in the beginning. Like, you've literally changed my life and my kids' life through the work that you do. And I can't thank you enough. I really, really can't. Like my kids and my wife mean more to me in the lessons that you give, your teaching through experience, the people that you speak to. It's like I can't thank you enough. So thank you for what you do, and thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Everything works out the way it's supposed to, the way it's supposed to, the way it's supposed to. Everything works out.